Okay, tonight we're going to be covering the nervous system, and we've kind of already talked a little bit about parts of the nervous system when we did the sensory system, the sense of taste and touch and hearing and sight and balance and pain, and all of those things are kind of tied up in the nervous system. It's important to remember as we talk about the nervous system that all of the voluntary activities, such as speaking and running, and as well as involuntary activities, such as your heartbeat or digestion, are all controlled by the nervous system. So let's just dive in. I've given you a note sheet, and it's going to be really basic. This notes page, as you can see, is just one page. However, I do have an activity that's still dealing with notes. If we were taking notes in class, we would have colored and cut and done all of this in class, but I'm going to want you to do that outside of class as a part of your notes system. Okay, if we were in class, I would just ask you this as kind of an introductory activity, but I want you to have this in your notes. How does the nervous system help the body to maintain homeostasis? Remember, homeostasis is a state of being in the body where everything is balanced. If you start running, then your heart rate increases, your breathing increases, and everything rises to that to maintain balance. Once you stop exercising, then your heart rate slows down and your breathing slows down, and again, balance is maintained. So the nervous system is what regulates other parts of the body by sensing and responding to conditions. So there's an example here. For example, if your body drops in temperature, the brain will sense it and respond by causing an increase in body temperature, maintaining that stable internal environment. Okay, the nervous system is made up of four parts. The brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves, kind of the intricate system. So when you're talking about nerve cells, we call that a neuron, and this is a cell that carries nerve impulse information, and there's three parts. So I want you to label that on your diagram. I believe you have that there in your notes, and they correspond to the numbers here. The dendrites, these deliver the impulses to the cell body. The cell body, that's number 2. These contain the nucleus and all of the cell organelles that we talked about way long time ago at the beginning of the year. And then the axon, that's number 3. This carries impulse away from the cell. So make sure you label those on your notes. And yes, you could see those parts again on a quiz. Now, nerve cells have space in between them, and these are called synapses. And when a message reaches the end of a cell, a chemical, and not something tangible, but a chemical will move it across the synapse of the axon to the dendrite of the next cell, delivering that chemical message. Okay, what is the function of the nervous system? It receives and responds to information from inside and outside the body. It will regulate body functions through stimulus and response, and it also maintains homeostasis, which we were just talking about. Okay, I'm going to want you to know two main parts of the nervous system. Now, if you're reading your chapter along with the flipped lessons, which I'm certain that you are, right? Just as pleasure reading, you're going to see that there's several different parts of the nervous system, like when you work on the automatic pilot, what does that really mean? But the only two that I'm going to want you to know for our purpose this year is the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, so the CNS and the PNS. The CNS, the central nervous system, includes the brain, which is your control center of the body, and the spinal cord, which links the brain with body nerves, and it controls reflexes. It's also protected by your vertebrae. The peripheral nervous system, the PNS, includes all of the nerves branching from the CNS to the rest of the body. So why is your brain so wrinkled? Well, your brain is not as big as it will be growing up as it will be when you're an adult. And so it doesn't fill the whole space inside your skull as a small child. In fact, your brain right now at this phase of your development, probably anywhere from 15 to about 18, your frontal lobe is what is the last part to develop, which the frontal lobe is the part of your brain that handles judgment. So if you sometimes make a really bad decision, it could be because you are just not capable of making the proper decision because your brain is still developing. That part is still growing. So as it grows, it fills up your skull and it fills out that space, and so it kind of crinkles up. as it folds in and on it of itself. So what's the purpose of that? Well, remember how I've joked about how always go back to the answer of surface area. The more surface area you have, the more places you have to have thoughts. Okay, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system are going to work together to respond to stimuli in your surroundings through your senses. And the senses that are listed here are light, sound, heat, chemicals, and pressure. So we have vision. We've kind of already talked about these with the sensory nervous system. Light stimulates rods, which is for the dim light, and cones are for the color, and sends an impulse to the brain. So right here, right over here, these are those cones and rods, and then it's going to send the impulse to your brain. Then hearing, the outer ear gathers sound waves that vibrate tiny little bones. Remember, we've talked about those before, the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. And the fluid, which sends an impulse to your brain. Then taste and smell. Remember, these kind of work together. We did the lab where we ate the candy to see if we could actually still taste it even though we could not smell it. Molecules in the air are going to stimulate nerve cells in your nasal passage right up here, the olfactory cells, and on the tongue, your taste buds. Okay, I'm not sure what happened to my pictures here, and I couldn't rearrange them once I uploaded them to this video app. So this does say cold, and this says touch. Touch receptors are found in organs, and skin detect changes in pressure and pain and temperature. Okay, so I believe that's all of the notes on this page. It was really short, but I do want you to do the Scienstructable on the notes. You're going to use the notes that are here in the remaining part of this presentation to fill the graphic organizer. So you're going to use one page to cut. Okay, so on this part you're going to use your notes that are in the remaining part of this presentation and have a second page of notes. Now for this one we're going to do a little cutting and taping, or cutting and gluing and coloring, as well as finishing the notes covering the actual parts of the brain. So what you're going to do is, this is the base form. This is where you're going to attach your notes, and you're also going to attach the other parts. So see how there are tabs on there, 1, 2, 3, 4. This page here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. So cut these pieces out and color them, and then you're going to either tape or glue those to the base part, and so you'll have kind of some flappy note parts. And so these represent different parts of the brain and pretty much kind of where they appear in your brain. Okay, so the brain is made of two symmetrical parts, the right and the left hemispheres, and you have blocks for those, the right side and the left side. And even though they're equal in size, they're going to carry out different jobs. So on the right side of your notes, I want you to write these words. The right side of the brain controls the left side of the body and performs tasks related to creativity and the arts. The left side, I'm pulling out my notes on this as well. On the left side, write that it controls the right side of the body, and the left side of the brain controls things like math and science, more academics. All right, the cerebellum, on that little space there, I want you to write that they control everyday voluntary movements, the movements that you choose, such as walking and riding, and they help us stay balanced and upright with coordinating our muscles. So that's what's going to go over on that side that says 3, right underneath the cerebellum function. Okay, then underneath you've got the brain. You've attached the brain stem, and the brain stem has 8 parts. So there's not a lot of room under where it says brain stem. Identify the 8 parts and their functions. So I used quite a bit of space, and I'll kind of show you here at the end where I put all of that. So you may want to write down these functions, or you may want to skip ahead to the end to see where I put all of my information, but I just used up all the extra space. I did not answer the question, how would a damaged cerebellum affect the body? I did not use that space. So I used all of the brainstem space, and kind of just to the left of that tab that says number 4, I used that space to include all of these definitions, because you will be required to know all of these vocabulary words with their definitions. So the thalamus is involved in sensory perception, controlling your sleep and awake states of consciousness. It also regulates your movement. The optic nerve, which is right here, these two little parts right here, those are the optic nerve. Those transfer visual information from the retina in the eye to the vision centers of the brain. The optic tract, and color this a different color, this part right here. That's a part of the optic nerve found where the nerves of the left eye and right eye cross to complete to create a completed picture. Then 4, this little part right there, kind of looks like that thing that hangs down in the back of your throat. That is your pituitary gland. This is from the endocrine system, if you remember from last night's lesson. This is the master gland that regulates how your other glands operate. The pituitary gland secretes and stores hormones. It's used to stimulate all the other glands. Body temperature, urine production, growth, sex hormones, the pituitary handles all of that. The midbrain, this is number 5 right here. So this is the midbrain. The midbrain regulates body movement, vision, and hearing. And then pons, this right here, this big part right here, that's the pons. That links to the cerebellum to help with the posture of movement. And the pons serve as a message station between several other areas of the brain. It controls our sleeping states and dreams. Okay, number 7 is the medulla oblongata. That's this part right here. So don't color this whole thing the same color. Only color this part right here. The medulla oblongata maintains involuntary bodily functions necessary for life, like your breathing, swallowing, blood pressure, heart rate, those sort of things. And then the spinal cord, that's the last part right here. The spinal cord is a long, thin bundle of nerve tissues that extend from the brain. It makes up the part of the central nervous system, and it handles numerous reflexes, transmits signals, that sort of thing. So you're going to want to know all of those definitions. When you finish, it should look something kind of like this. And they'll fold where you can have the right and left hemisphere on top, or you can include the brainstem totally underneath the cerebellum. I kind of did it like this so you could kind of see all the different parts, but I'm going to want to see this tomorrow, colored and fully labeled as if it were part of your notes. If we had been in class, we would have taken notes like this. So I want you to do this on your own. Cut them, tape them, take the notes. I color-coded, you can see on my brainstem, these parts right here are color-coded with colored pencil so I could see. Okay, blue here is the medulla oblongata. The red right up here is the optic nerve. This yellow part, that's the thalamus. That little purple part is the pituitary gland. I want you to color code yours as well. So come with that 1 page of simple notes completed, as well as the Scienstructable of the brain completed as well. All right, feel free to back up and rewind if you missed any parts of this. Pretty simple, and tomorrow we're going to do a nervous system activity to test how quick your senses are.